As we get into the next section of the piece, which is about Bob Melvin and the relationship with A.J. Preller, you referenced 2 years ago, and the section about Jace Tingler, the knock on him, at least from, a player perspective, was that he was just viewed as a puppet for A.J. Preller. He was too closely aligned with the front office. And, so A.J. went with a very different direction with Bob Melvin, someone who was not, closely aligned, a veteran who is well respected. And according to, this piece and what we've heard as well, Bob Melvin remains incredibly well respected inside the clubhouse. People like Xander Bogaerts talking about how his communication skills are second to none.
Which is exactly what we heard from Jump Street.
Yep. Players inside the organization, seem to enjoy playing for Bob Melvin.
Who is Bob Melvin?
That's the second time I've flubbed that before.
Hold on. Remix.
Great manager, great guy. The players like Bob Melvin. That doesn't mean that he's necessarily the right person for the job. The job of a manager is not just to be liked by his players. However, he's certainly not the reason, you're not getting a bunch of grumbling players going, the manager is the issue here, like they might have said a couple of years ago with Jace Tingler.
When the day Andy Green was let go, Will Myers literally said, yeah, I think it was the right move. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't imagine players feeling the same way.
I can't either.
If Bob Melvin was relieved of his duties in 10 days, 11 days. I really can't imagine. I think it would be, honestly, if I were one of the players, speaking for myself, I would feel a tremendous amount of guilt. Tremendous. Because I think Bob Melvin is a tremendous man and a tremendous manager. And if Bob Melvin isn't managing this team next year,
I'd be voicing support right now.
No
as
doubt.
A player.
And if he's not here next year, that's malpractice as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and you may have a riot, a revolution on your hands if you get rid of Bob Melvin in that clubhouse, which is something that I think the Padres absolutely should consider before they make any moves, knowing we've got culture issues to fix, and they're only going to get more severe if Bob Melvin is not there, because the players clearly respect him and want to continue to play for him. Puts him in an interesting situation here at the end of the season.
This is massively entertaining here and interesting. Quote, yet as the Padres crumbled this season, the differences between Preller and Melvin created a major disconnect. The rift between the two became one of the worst-kept secrets in baseball. Melvin declined to comment for the story. It says several Padres people interviewed for the story described circumstances in which Preller told players one thing, Melvin told them another. One player, while careful not to absolve himself and his teammates of blame, likened the situation to a toxic relationship between parents in which the kids suffer. If no one's on the same page, you're getting two stories from two different people. There's not trust there. The players are going to feel like, well, who can I confide in? Who can I talk to? I mean, if he goes, it's again, there's another quote in there. I think it was this or something over the weekend, basically said, if it's not Bob Melvin, then who is it? Who is it? I see a lot of takes online. Oh, Ozzie Guillen, you need a fiery guy to kick these guys in the rear end. Give Benji Gill a shot. Paulie suggested this morning, maybe Adrian Beltre.
He was referenced in the story by Dennis Lynn and Ken Rosenthal.
I'm not going to crap on any ideas. I'm really not. There's a couple that just don't make a lot of sense. Ozzie Guillen hasn't managed in a long time, and I think there's a reason behind it. Not exactly sure what it is, but I don't know that a fiery kind of guy gets the job done here either. I honestly have no idea. If it's not Bob Melvin, then who?
That's the quote.
The problem is, the reason I thought, Adrian Beltre, after hearing seeing his name in that story, was that'd be a first-time manager.
Again,
that's who you're going to get. You're not going to go get some elite veteran manager who knows what they're doing, because they're going to go, wait, you just broke Bob Melvin.
Yeah, Bob Melvin is out?
You're telling me I'm going to be on a 1-year hot seat every single year because you just rotate managers in. He'll be number 6 out of 10 in 10 years?
9 years.
Another part of the section here that Dennis Lynn writes about says Preller's roster construction created difficulties for Melvin, and We're kind of seeing that in the last few days with the contributions they're getting deeper in the roster. Lynn writes, the Padres played much of the first half with essentially only one position player reserve beyond the backup catcher. That's, of course, because Nelson Cruz and Matt Carpenter were taking up roster spots, really couldn't play in the field. Melvin didn't have many levers to pull. Most of the Padres regulars played every game. That lineup was cemented once Fernando Tatis Jr. returned on April 20th from his suspension. So Dennis concludes the workload perhaps contributed to another divide between the front office and Melvin's coaching staff. There was just sometimes guys run out of gas, one Padres player said. I see it, and sometimes the sad part is club officials see it too. Why don't you make adjustments?
There's no adjustments to make,
heard Bob
right? We've heard Bob say.
But yesterday he said, hey, the way I like to manage is get everyone involved, use lots of guys. I've finally been able to do that lately.
His first day on the job, day one press conference, I believe the quote was, you don't win a World Series with 25, 26 guys. You win it with 50 guys. That was like the first day he got here. He was not able to do that this year. He just wasn't. Those guys were gone. They were moved to bring in other major league ready players. It's fine. I mean, there's not too many moves that A.J. Preller made over the last few years. Some of them left you scratching your head, but for the most part, I was pretty fired up for, I'd say 75% of them, which now I'd say maybe 35% have actually worked out, maybe even less. But at the time, I thought, okay, yeah, this makes sense to me. Hindsight being 2020, obviously we have that luxury. A.J. Preller does not. He does not have that luxury.
No, and Melvin doesn't come out completely, uncriticized. According to Lynn, Melvin has drawn internal criticism for his bullpen management, according to one former official. And we've heard that from fans all season long, that feels like, he's pulled the wrong strings out of the pen a lot this season.
Sure.
Padres ranked 12th in the majors in bullpen ERA, 25th in save percentage. Their one-run and extra inning records, perhaps attributable to poor luck, but a manager's decision-making can also influence those outcomes. Of course, they point out last year everything was fine. They went 30-17 in those one-run games. So it's not necessarily Melvin forgot what he was doing, but maybe didn't have the right levers to pull, as they said this season.
Yeah, obviously injuries played a part in it. You had guys coming up. Guys were not sharp early. Luis Garcia was not sharp at all early. Cosgrove was a bit of a bright spot. I'm trying to remember early in the season who were the main guys. Nick Martinez, kind of a weird hybrid start for him in the season, was used in high leverage. Maybe that was a mistake after 2 or 3 times of it not working in high leverage, giving up the long ball. Maybe it's time to make a change there, right? And Bob was slow to do that because he had seen Nick Martinez do it before. He puts a lot of trust in his guys. And as a player, that's what you live for, right? You live for a manager that's going to trust you and give you the opportunity to get yourself out of it. And hey, by the way, a lot of guys did start off the season slow and got themselves out of, whether it be slumps, pitching slumps, et cetera, and that's, I think, attributed to Bob Melvin and Niebla and the guys that all helped them get themselves out of it. But you can't do it with no ABs, right? You can't do it with no innings pitched. So while some of the moves have been confounding and head-scratching, obviously, I said it early in the season, which gas can do you want to go to? Do you want to go to Brent Homerwell? Do you want to go to Luis Garcia? Do you want to go to the rookie Tom Cosgrove in a high-leverage situation? Or do you want to go to the guy you just paid $30 million to in Nick Martinez to try to get you out of a high-leverage situation, which he has a track record of doing so? It makes sense to me. When it doesn't work out, that's when people go, well, you idiot. You should have gone to Honeywell. You should have gone to whoever. And I've said it like a mantra. Managing a bullpen would be the single worst job in the country. I'd rather clean sewers than manage a bullpen at the major league level. I sent you guys last night. Just last night, I was scrolling through Twitter, and I sent the fellas one I saw from Texas. Came out of Texas. And it said, I'm finding it. You can vamp for a minute. Where did it go? Oh, here we go. At Evan P. Grant, who's a writer for the Rangers. When will the Rangers media blame Boach for pulling starters too early and going to this terrible bullpen? Every fan knows it and is screaming at their TV. And I wrote, same S, different area code. It's same in Houston, same in Atlanta. They've lost, I think, 4 in a row. They're panicking. It's the hardest job there is to do. How do you know? How do you know? You play the matchups. Sometimes you play your gut. But when you have guys that probably aren't ready for that level, and other guys get injured, and there's no depth to choose from, which gas can do you call on?
I wonder if the Padres just had started the season with this current mix.
With a little Eggy.
Batten and Eggy and obviously Campy being healthy would have been a different mix. But
it would have been huge.
With a healthy starting rotation, Joe and you, if they would have played like this all season long, or they would have just run into the same struggles early in the year, and this has nothing to do with the current mix of players. It does feel like Bob Melvin likes, using other guys, but he wouldn't have played Matt Batten every single day, if it wasn't required because of injuries. Right now, if Manny's elbow didn't force him, he'd be out there every day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Juan Soto wants to play every day. It's not as though Juan Soto's been begging for a day off and Bob Melvin's going, I can't give you a day off.
Opposite.
Juan Soto doesn't want to come out of the lineup. Fernando Tatis Jr. wants to be an everyday player. He said as much at the start of the season, and he has become that this year. So I don't know how much different it could have been at the beginning of the year with a different roster, because
I think
those guys were going to play every day.
But I think you answered your own question about 3 minutes ago when you said Matt Carpenter, who really can't play a position, and Nelly Cruz, who really can't play a position. That is not the way Bob Melvin likes to manage. He doesn't like to just platoon a DH and then roll guys out for 89 games in a row, right? That's not how he likes to manage. He wants to have more guys involved. And you had two guys,
correct,
two guys that were just there to hit, and they didn't even do that well. So that really puts you behind the eight ball as a manager when you're like, my options are very, very thin. And now with Suarez being gone, I got a rookie up here in Cosgrove. I'm not putting him in a high situation yet, high leverage. What do I do? What do I do? Josh Hader has said he really only wants to throw one inning. He's in a walk year. I mean, there's a lot of factors working against you as a manager when you're hamstrung.
Yeah,
and by the way, the other part of the article that said that they talked about GMs trying to stay about 40,000 feet away, right? And they said with AJ, he'll end up being about 10,000 feet away, which means he's in it, his hands are on it, this is what you need to do. When you hire a manager, we said it yesterday.
We've heard that too.
Yeah, we have.
From current and former people.
And when you hire a manager like Bob Melvin, I said it yesterday, I thought about it later, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to stand behind the point of that should be the most relaxing thing for A.J. Preller ever. He doesn't have to worry about Tingler losing the clubhouse. He knows for a fact Bob Melvin isn't going to lose it. He doesn't have to worry about Andy Green not being respected. He knows Bob Melvin is respected. That, to me, after that article came out in 21, this was the time you hire Bob Melvin, Ben, and you go, all right, now I get to kick back, and let's see what this guy can do. And it hasn't been that way. And that was rumored, and now it's confirmed. It said in this article, their relationship is unfixable. I don't believe that. I believe that two men can get in a room and work out anything if they're honest with themselves and they're honest with each other. But I'll tell you what, man, I've said it before. If he is gone, that's baseball malpractice. Bob Melvin deserves to manage this team for as long as he wants, in my opinion.
And if A.J. Preller stays, which is still very much a possibility, it can work, but it sounds like A.J. is going to have to make some changes.
Absolutely.
If he's going to stick around and be successful.
Which, by the way, it's not an indictment on somebody.
No.
It's not. No one's perfect. No GM is perfect. No human being is perfect. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and go, I've blown. I do it with my marriage. I do it as a father. I do it as a co-host. I do it as a friend. Constantly. Too much self-evaluation.
And I feel like AJ, I don't know him that well, but from what we've talked to him, and we've talked to him more than most over the last few years, he wants to give this thing his best effort. He's
100%.
the general manager of a baseball team. And if he's going to go down, he wants to go down fighting and kicking and doing everything he possibly can. But ultimately, the last thing he needs to try is to do less. And maybe if he's going to stick around, he's got to just back off.
You mean that the last thing, like the fun, like the way to fix it maybe is, all right, as much as this is going to suck.
This is going to hurt more than anything, but I got to take my finger off a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, then
I
gave everything a try, and maybe I just wasn't cut out to make this successful.
When your de facto mode is, okay, well, this isn't working. I've got to now work 23 hours a day. I don't know that that's the right way. There's so much more in here. I mean, you guys, we could literally do this.
I mean, the right at the beginning of the piece, it says the Padres' guiding philosophy under Preller, according to a former high-ranking official. Quote, do more than everybody else at all times.
Yeah.
Sounds about like A.J. Preller.
No question.
Guy who never sleeps, is always looking for what's next, an edge, scouting, whatever it can be. And while that is also, it's one of his great strengths, it may also turn out to be also his biggest weakness.